hope I continue to get even smarter about money as I go. Always learning, always looking to learn new ideas and concepts. But it really, I think about early 30s is when I think I really started to kind of get a better grip on what if I'm intentional, what I can possibly do, what I can accomplish.
All right. Welcome to the F Words podcast. I'm Nic Skovgaard, and I have with me today John Forbes from the Forbes Financial Group in Carbondale. And we are going to be talking about how our thoughts on money are shaped from the time we're kids. John, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, glad to be here. Enjoy it.
So John, we had some really cool episodes recorded early on. You know, the first couple ones we did, we had some interesting things about like, you know, your upbringing in money. We had interesting things about like love and money and relationships and money and how people have, you know, different natural tendencies. But money lessons kind of stick with us, right? They reflect on who we become. Would you agree with that? Let's just start with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we all come into this adulting with our own normal, and the normals are so diverse that it can really create challenges. You know, whether it's with parenting your kids or you know, finding a spouse, or the financial history that you bring into any relationship with friends even. It's etched into your DNA, and it's hard to get out.
So we have, you know, this like money stories that we have from the time we're kids, right? You know, they shape the way we earn. They shape the way we spend. They shape the way we give. They shape the way we plan. And so like, what gets people to stop and maybe reflect on what shapes their own piece of money, and what do they maybe need to unlearn?
Yeah, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, it's a financial foul up that usually jars us into realizing, oh wait, maybe there's a better way. That's more often than not what happens, and sadly, more often than not, it revolves around debt. It's not usually that you're not earning enough money. It's that you're spending money you don't quite have yet, and unlike the U.S. government, we can't print our own currency.
So, but there's power in this, right? So if you stop to realize that that's the case, and maybe there's some things that have shaped the way you view money and the way you treat money and the things you do, you can stop and reflect and ask yourself, what do I want to keep about what I learned from my parents or what I learned growing up? And what do I want to change? Like, we have the power to control this, don't we? You've probably seen clients change weird or bad habits, right?
Yeah, and oftentimes it's because they really weren't aware of another normal. They just didn't know another way to do things. This is how mom and dad did it. This is how I'm going to do it. And what became generally accepted as a proper financial footing was quicksand.
So, you know, when we talk about our childhood and the fact that we can change it, we can also be intentional about what we pass on, right? To our kids, to the next generation. And I imagine that when you talk to a lot of, you know, your clients and sort of like what they want to leave behind, they want to leave their kids in a good financial place. And they want to know that they're going to be good stewards of what's left behind, right? How does that manifest in conversations with maybe clients or even just things of your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people even have trouble having that conversation, because to have that conversation, you have to accept that you're mortal, and a lot of folks don't want to talk about leaving a legacy or leaving something behind. Not everybody, but for some it's a very difficult conversation, in part because they didn't have that with their parents. And again, there are some significant generational impacts that can be avoided just by being very intentional about making this, accepting this reality and sharing information with your kids. There's oftentimes a lot of secrecy in some families when it comes to money, and to accept that maybe this is a conversation that we need to have, because if you either, what will happen is either you won't have that conversation, or it'll be at a stage when no one's going to remember the conversation because there's so much else going on.
So let's talk about you for a second. What lessons did your parents or maybe even your grandparents pass down to you? Have you always been good with money?
Uh, just because they passed it down didn't mean it stuck. So let's get that clear. I've not always been good with money, but yeah, I grew up a very hardworking dad and mom, and you didn't borrow for anything. You had extra money in the savings account, and you had some money in a CD back then in the 70s when CDs were paying double digit returns. It seemed like a good idea. So yeah, very, very well grounded with when it comes to money and work ethic. And I think sometimes that does play a big financial role in your future as well. Yeah, my parents taught me early on. This is back when I was in high school. All my friends were going to work at the burger joint in town, and minimum wage. But that's where all my friends were, and thought that'd be the fun place to work. And we had an old snapper lawnmower, little 38-inch. It was a riding lawnmower, but it was nothing like the mowers you see today. And Dad kind of walked me through, okay, if you go down to the neighbors and mow her yard, and you'll make $10, and it took you an hour and 15 minutes, you can work, a quarter as much and make the same amount of money. And it's like, oh, okay. So what started with one neighbor's yard and then two neighbors' yards. Then when I was old enough to drive, Dad hooked me up with a pull cart that I could put on the back of my car and tote my snapper lawnmower and the push mower and the weed eater all over Carterville. And at one point, I had about 27 yards by the time I was in college. 27 yards that I was mowing. And that was a crazy full-time job, but it created, at that time, for a kid, it was a lot of wealth. It was fantastic. And so I learned a couple things. I learned that maybe I should try to be my own boss at someday. And there's value to be had to do things that others won't do. So it really helped financially create that strong foundation of going out, working, earning, and saving and preparing for a rainy day. Now, flash forward to married and then kids come along, and costs can move up a little quicker than income does, and yeah, I got into a bind with credit cards and things. Nothing. It wasn't bad, but it was bad enough that it was. How are we going to get out of this? And had to get intentional and serious. So when I talk to clients, and especially kids of clients, I come from an experience of I've been there. I did that. I made that mistake. And wow, I really don't want you to make it, because it takes years to dig out of things like that. So just because I learned good money, I had good financial wisdom as a child. It didn't always stick. And when you run into that wall is when you realize, okay, I've got to go back to what I know and set myself up on an income budget where the check would go into the account, but I would only get a certain amount transferred over into the spending account, and created some very intentional steps to keep me from getting my hands on everything.
So then when you talk about maybe these habits that were formed for you as a kid, the things that your dad was taught you, I think this is kind of such an interesting question. Were they spoken, specifically, did your dad pull you aside and sort of give you money advice, or were they more modeled where you watched him and what his decisions were and you learned from that? Which one was your family growing up?
I think as I think back on financial discussions, I think most of them were actually with mom. Dad was working and in the summers especially, mom was home, and she even helped me mow a couple yards. So they were both in on all of this, but stressing the importance of not borrowing money was really something mom had more direct conversations with me than dad on that particular topic. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Mhm.
And so like, when you think about like maybe like patterns that you had early on and like maybe things that you didn't notice until much later, did you like get to a point in your life where you're like, some of this that I'm carrying doesn't serve me anymore, or some of this like I don't know why I made these decisions? Because like you give so much advice. How did you get to where you are today, and like what you think is of good solvent, money decisions?
Yeah, I think it's like when intentionality is enforced, that's when things can really turn around. Um, I would say I hope I continue to get even smarter about money as I go. Always learning, always looking to learn new ideas and concepts. But yeah, it really I think about early 30s is when I think I really started to kind of get a better grip on what if I'm intentional, what I can possibly do, what I can accomplish, and getting actively engaged in plowing money back into the retirement accounts and uh, not necessarily looking to upscale the house to the 12 bedroom mansion, but measure the success on how many shares am I acquiring in my retirement savings. That will provide a lot of flexibility for me down the road. Um, drawing a total blank, Nick.
No, and so actually, like I can guide this really quickly back, which is, there's two things that I want to ask. The first one, just because I don't want to lose this opportunity, if you could kind of like look back, of course, all the people who's ever given you money advice growing up, or all the things that you've learned along the way, is there one piece of financial advice or thoughts on money that you wish that everyone you talk to could hear and know and could have experienced the way you did? Is there something that really sticks with you?
I had a mentor when I first got into this financial advisement business. I had a mentor, and he had a really thick Boston accent, and he would say, "You got to make hay while the sun shines," and it was his way of saying, "You got to stick money back. You got to plow back when times are good. Set some money back so that you can weather the challenging times ahead." And and because I hear it, and even as I think about it right now, I hear his thick accent and smile. And he was right. So many people as small business owners whose incomes can fluctuate can get used to spending at a high level, and then when they hit a dry patch, if they don't have something set back, it can wreck a career.
Yeah. And so then the second one is like taking this and some of the things that we talked about for you, and maybe, not any individual person, but like as you talk about the different thought processes of clients you've talked to and all the people from all the different walks of life, what are some of the really common things that people maybe learned about money as a kid that maybe isn't serving them anymore? Any things that you've had people come into your office, you've worked with them for years, and finally like it clicks and they're like, "Oh, why am I doing this?" Do you have any like, examples of common things you see all the time as a financial advisor?
Yeah, I just this fall will be 30 years in the business. And when I think back, especially the early conversations I was having with clients, this would have been back in the mid 90s. And you had 60-year-olds at that time, 70-year-olds, who just the mere thought of the stock market when they lived through the Depression, or even as their parents had to navigate the Depression, that mindset was a very challenging one to overcome because of their life experience and having money at multiple banks, no matter if it was 10,000 or 100,000, because the banks would fail. They had stories of the banks failing either when they were young or when their parents were dealing with it. And of course, the rules, everything's changed. There's so much in place now, and safeguards and protections that weren't there back then. But still, that habit, that mindset that is just it just permeates everything they would see and do. So anything that sniffed of risk was couldn't possibly be good. So yeah, there were a lot of things that conversations that you try to gain a little bit of traction with each conversation, and slowly over time get them to where they need to be financially.
So, I think that there are probably a lot of habits that people carry around that, maybe they realize they have, maybe they don't, but things, the beliefs that they need to unlearn, right? Things that they might do. And I think that, you've given me some examples of, people who are, living above their means, or they're spending too much money, or people who don't, they amass great wealth, but they don't do anything with it. They forget to live. What do you have any like common things of, man, like if this is something you're carrying around with you, maybe it's time to like look back and look intrinsically of like, is this still serving you? Is it time to maybe change? Do you have examples of things like that are just things that everyday people might be going like, yeah, that's me.
Right. Yeah. I think, and as you kind of walk through that question, generosity is something that a lot of people don't necessarily think in those terms, and not because they're not generous people. It's just they don't realize that they're in a season where, yeah, I can actually do this. Again, that mindset of what they grew up in can sometimes create not a hoarding, but just wanting to make sure beyond sure that financially they are okay, and to have conversations with those folks and find out what's near and dear to their hearts. It might be their church. It might be American Cancer Society. I mean, there are any number of really, really neat charities out there. When the light goes off, the light bulb goes off, and they realize, I can do this. Yes, they've sent $100 every year to such and such. How about, I got an idea? Let's send them 10,000. I can do this. Yes, yeah. And we walk through what you can do, and why you can afford to be generous, because you've done a great job accumulating, growing your wealth, spending 80 cents of every dollar instead of $1.20 out of every dollar. Let's do some things that would be impactful to the broader community. And that's a couple of clients come to mind that received an inheritance and really, really stepped up and gave generously from that money, and made substantial impacts to some very wonderful charities and nonprofits that are doing great work. So yeah, just understanding that, yeah, maybe I am in a season, and talk to a financial advisor. Let somebody look under the hood and figure out, that may be a thing that you can do. It may not be a thing. There might be something else going on that needs to be addressed first. Sometimes it's generosity with your kids, and if there's family, when it comes to family dynamics and money, it can be all over the place. But there are smart ways that you can be very generous to your loved ones as well, while you're alive, and get to see them enjoy it.
How about you? Is there one specific moment in life where you were like, you rethought an old habit that didn't serve you anymore, or you realized that you had the financial means to make a difference in a way that you maybe didn't realize? Was there a moment like that for you?
I think. Let me think. As far as, was there a moment where a habit wasn't serving me well? Honestly, nothing's jumping out right now. But in terms of, I was thinking in terms of generosity, Karen and I had a very close a friend and a longtime neighbor that passed away just within the last couple of years, and we made a decision to honor her legacy, and it's over a 5-year period, and we are thrilled to get to do it. And every time that check goes out, it's just another reminder all over of how amazing this lady was and what an impact she had on thousands of people. So that brings a lot of joy.
So, when we talk about like all of this, I think that the most powerful realization that comes up is that, maybe there were some things that didn't always serve you. Maybe you learned some things along the way from somebody who made an impact in you. But then as you kind of get to that point, the next thing is, what lessons are we going to leave behind? What do we want to instill in the next generation? So with you specifically, what do you hope to instill in your kids about money as they grow up? Or that, you work with the CEO program and talk to high school students. Like what money lessons do you want to make sure are there that you're leaving behind and teaching the next generation?
Yeah, it's funny, the conversations with the kids and money. While I'm teaching them stuff, they're teaching me too. And I was very early on very career focused and wanting to plant the flag and get some things done. And what I love is my kids can make really sound decisions as far as they understand. Credit cards can really wreak havoc easily on your financial well-being, and they all know that very well, and have a cash reserve, have a cushion set aside for the what ifs, and they do that very well. But they've also taught me that money is not everything. When we talk about a legacy. A financial legacy is fantastic. It's wonderful. But a lifetime legacy, a legacy that reveals your character and your faith and your ability to love others well is far more profound than any financial legacy.
John, I know we've talked about this in one of the early episodes, but it's, and I think you might have been the one to share this with me, but like, there's a big difference between, resume value and eulogy value is, and nobody ever sort of posts their paycheck on their tombstone, right? That's not it, right? What did you do that's going to make an impact? Will you kind of expand on that? I just think that's so important.
Yeah. Well, I think we don't take enough time to ask ourselves what's our purpose, what's our why, why am I here, what am I supposed to be doing? And when you can think big about that kind of question and think big about multi-generational impact, what can you do? I had a client that literally wrote an entire book, huge book, to give to his kids and grandkids about his life and his life story and how his faith impacted various decisions along the way. But he did it because he was intentional. He wanted to make sure that was preserved. Don't know if they read it, but he certainly wanted to make sure that legacy was preserved. Yeah, we just, I think we miss out when we don't stop and ask, how can I be a blessing today? How can I wow somebody today? And when you lead with that, then you see things through a new set of eyes that you weren't seeing before. And it could be as simple as you see a young mom with two kids at the grocery store, and she's in front of you and trying to keep the kids going, get the grocery. Pay her tab. Just pay it, and just wish her well. And you got sweet kids, and go have a great day. That will, in all likelihood, not financially devastate you, but that might set a tone and a ripple that you had no idea of the impact it could have. So it doesn't have to be big and grand. It's just when you start with that perspective of how can I be a blessing today, the opportunities are all over the place.
And I like that so many times when you do something like that, when you give something of value, you get an intrinsic, like, it makes your day, right? Like you kind of set out to go make someone's day, but like you never feel better than when you're doing something that is meaningful and impactful on someone else's life. I think that's just incredible.
Yeah, no, it's almost selfish to say it, but yeah, it is. It's wonderful that you get to do something for somebody. Um, but I think down at our in our core, we know kindness can make a difference. We know that just showing a little bit of kindness, especially in this crazy world we are in right now, kindness creates ripples. It just like when I come into the office and I'm in a sour mood or I have a sour attitude, uh, everybody in the building recognizes it pretty quickly. And if I come in with the right mood and the right momentum, uh, it makes for a much brighter day. And that's all set within the first 60 seconds of walking in the room. And it's the same thing at home. You know, if I'm frustrated and I get out of the car and I'm kind of grumpy as I walk in the door, that's gonna be a long night when I get home. But if I can come home and I can bring her some flowers and we can put on some music and fix dinner, that sets the tone for the night as well.
So, as we kind of wrap up, I have two things I want to kind of finish on. And one of them is sort of a last question. And then one of them is sort of an action item, something that people could take away. And so the last question is, how does like the legacy we leave behind, shift when we view money as more of a tool than the goal, right? How does that change people's perspective?
Yeah, money is a currency, but it's not the currency you think it is. It's not a currency designed that you can figure out what you can go get. It's what can I go give? What can I do? And that can become a legacy, whether it's a very you come from a modest financial position or one of great wealth. When you look at currency as a giving tool and not a getting tool, it makes all the difference.
I love that. So I always like to end on these action items, John, because I think these are so valuable. Every time we go through this, I have these conversations with you, and I immediately think like, there's something I want to walk away and go do. And I always want to give this audience sort of this action item. So like, I think that the one that I would sort of challenge is if you have money habits that aren't serving you, or if you haven't really thought about your money habits, what's a way that I can, maybe sit down and think about those money habits? What can I do to be intentional about the ones I build forward and the ones I pass on? What would you recommend that I do in the next 10 days?
You could try this. You could sit down with your spouse and say, if we just won $1 million lottery, if they handed us $1 million check, what would we do with it? And see how that conversation goes, and see if the idea of giving back and sharing, if that comes up, and then realize you have won the lottery. You're alive. You've got your health, your family, your friends. If you're working, you hopefully enjoy your job. You've got a comfy couch to sit in and watch TV. You've won. So maybe it can't be a grand expression, but if you view it as I've won the lottery now, who do I want to share this with? Maybe it's $10, maybe it's $100. I don't know what it is, but it's not so much about the amount as the recognition of it. It's a giving currency, not a getting currency.
John, I love that so much. I always learn so much from these conversations. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. We're going to be talking about some really cool things in our next episode, and I can't wait to get to it.
All right, sounds good.
All right, John.
Security and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax or legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance reference is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal.